I was sitting at the kitchen table with a half-finished cup of coffee when she slid the envelope across the wood grain as if it were some kind of weapon. Her hand trembled, but her eyes didn't. They were cold, hard, like she had been practicing this moment in her head for weeks. "Sign them," she said. No hesitation. No cracks in her voice. Just those two words. For a second I thought I misheard her. Divorce papers. After everything. After nearly 10 years together, after the house, after the night she held me when my father died, after the dreams we had painted for the future. She wanted to reduce all of that to a stack of printed pages. I looked up at her. "Is this supposed to scare me?" I asked quietly. She flinched just a little. That's when I realized. This wasn't about ending things cleanly. This was about control. About power. About humiliation. And that's when something inside me snapped. "Perfect," I said, pushing the envelope back toward her. "You just made it easier for me." The cracks before the shatter. Her name was Melissa. When I met her, she was all warmth and laughter. The kind of woman who made the world feel lighter just by walking into a room. She had this energy, carefree, magnetic, that made me believe I was the luckiest man alive. For years I ignored the tiny cracks. The late nights explained away as work, the sudden obsession with her phone, the distant look in her eyes whenever I talked about our future. But marriage teaches you to compromise, right? To be patient, to trust. I did. God, I trusted her. Until the trust turned to suspicion. And suspicion became proof. It started with the gym bag she left in the car. Her phone buzzed on the seat, screen lighting up with a message. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait for the next time." I remember sitting there, staring at those words, my chest tightening like a vice. At first, I convinced myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe a joke. Maybe a misunderstanding. But deep down I knew. When I confronted her, she laughed. "You're paranoid," she said, rolling her eyes. "He's just a friend." But friends don't send messages like that. The day she showed her hand. Melissa had always been clever. Manipulative, even. She knew how to twist guilt into a knife and make me believe I was the one destroying us. Every time I brought up her absences, her lies, she turned it back on me. "You don't trust me. You're suffocating me. Maybe you're the reason I have to find happiness somewhere else." That last line cut deeper than any blade. So when she came home that morning with divorce papers in her hand, I realized what this was really about. She wanted to corner me. To frighten me into begging her to stay. To prove I couldn't live without her. But instead all I felt was relief. "You think this hurts me?" I opened the envelope and skimmed the pages. She hadn't just drawn up papers. She had gone for the jugular. She wanted the house. Half my savings. Even custody of the dog we'd adopted 2 years ago. It was a slaughter in legal form. Melissa crossed her arms, her lips curving into a smirk. "It's over, Daniel. Might as well make this easy." I set the papers down and met her gaze. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt calm. "You think this hurts me?" I said softly. "You think I'm going to fight you for scraps after what you've done?" Her confidence flickered. She blinked. What do you mean?" "I mean," I said, leaning back in my chair, "you're not the one ending this marriage. You just gave me the paperwork to make it official." The betrayal unfolds. The days after that conversation felt surreal. Melissa tried to keep her act together, but cracks began to show. She wasn't expecting me to accept it so easily. She wasn't expecting me to call a lawyer the next day. That's when the full story came out. The man she was seeing wasn't just a friend. He was her coworker, a mid-level manager who had been at her office for barely 6 months. They weren't discreet either. Dinner receipts, hotel bookings, even photos from a coworker who felt sorry for me. Evidence piled up like bricks on her coffin. When I showed her what I knew, she went pale. "You've been spying on me," she hissed. "No," I said evenly. "You've been careless." And I stopped letting myself be blind. Her eyes darted away, her jaw clenching. For once she had no comeback. power shift. The weeks that followed were brutal. Divorce is never clean, never painless. But what Melissa hadn't anticipated was that her betrayal would strip her of leverage. My lawyer shredded her demands one by one. The house. Mine. I bought it before we were married. The savings. Protected. The dog. Even the judge laughed at the audacity of her claim. Her affair, on record, tipped the scales further. What began as her attempt to humiliate me turned into her unraveling. She tried begging then. She tried tears. I made a mistake, Daniel. Please, we can fix this. I stared at her, the woman I had once loved with every fiber of my being, and felt nothing. No anger. No longing. Just emptiness. You already made your choice, I said. And now I'm making mine. Reflection. Nights were the hardest. Lying in an empty bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how love had rotted into betrayal. I replayed memories, every kiss, every laugh, every whispered promise. Was any of it real? Or had I been loving a stranger all along? But with each passing day, the weight lifted. I started running again. Picked up my guitar, something I hadn't touched in years. Friends I thought I'd lost to Melissa's manipulations began calling, checking in, pulling me back into life. And slowly I realized. I hadn't lost myself. She had lost me. The final blow. The last time I saw her was in the courthouse parking lot after the final hearing. She looked smaller somehow, her confidence stripped bare. She walked up to me, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you ever think we could have saved it? I looked at her, at the woman who had once been my everything and then tried to destroy me when her lies came to light. No, I said simply. Because you didn't want to save us. You just wanted to save yourself. She turned away, tears streaking her face. But I didn't chase her. Not anymore. Moving forward. People always say divorce is an ending. But for me it was something else. It was freedom. It was clarity. It was the moment I finally saw myself not as a victim, but as a man who refused to be broken. Melissa thought she could frighten me with papers, with threats, with betrayal. But all she did was open the door I had been too afraid to walk through. Now, when I sit in that same kitchen with my coffee, the silence doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels peaceful. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to someone who betrays you isn't, please stay. Or, why did you do this? It's exactly what I told her that day. Perfect. You just made it easier for me.